This is the Media Police Post, broadcasting from the Fort Hall School of Government. In this show, we police the state of truth in the Republic. And because truth is communicated to us by journalists and analysts, we have made it our civic duty to put it to the test. We advance from two confirmed truths about the media. One, and according to Roger Stone, the media is either lazy or evil. And for the most part, it is both evil and lazy. That is why the truth, their truth, must be put to a test.
And two, that journalism is verified gossip. In fact, what is presented to us as news analysis is gossip that has been verified by journalists. This gossip has to be ground truthed. We will assess the state of truth and what they submit to the Republic, and we will pass verdict on what is true and what is not. For the record, we are not journalists, we are thinkers. We are not lazy or evil, and we do not verify gossip. What we give you is the truth that sets you free.
On today's show, we will discuss ideas that reflect unformed and uninformed opinions, and ideas that made you stupid. Narratives that fell into the cognitive trap of we see things as we are and not as they are. Narratives based on conjecture history and those that smack of envelope journalism. Welcome, Ms. K and GK.
Thank you. Now that all the parties have chosen their running mates, the next political hurdle Azimio and Kenya Kwanza and the sea of independence must cross is the campaign season. Becoming a presidential candidate is only the beginning of the election process. Successful candidates must do two things. The first is to persuade voters that they deserve their individual votes, and the second is to get a critical mass of votes to win the election. And political campaigns are all about persuading voters and incentivizing them to take action on election day. In 1962, E.M. Rogers came up with a theory of the diffusion of innovation. In our view, this theory is applicable to political campaigning and the buy-in by the voting public. According to Rogers, innovations are adopted in a pattern that follows a normal distribution, and there are 5 groups of people categorized according to their readiness to adopt the new innovation. The 5 categories are 1. Innovators, 2. Early adopters, the 3rd is the early majority, the 4th is the late majority, and the 5th is the laggards. The innovators are the first 2.5% of the population that adopt an innovation. The early adopters are the next 13.5% that adopt the innovation. The early majority of 34%, and followed by the late majority of another 34%. Last come the laggards with the remaining 16% to give you a total 100. And there are some who argue that there's a final category, a 6th one called the skeptics. These ones adopt an innovation only at the very end of the diffusion process because there are no alternatives available. So in this campaign season, Azimio and Kenya Kwanza and the ideas they are both selling are the innovations, the hustler narrative and the notion that the presidency must be handed over from the Kikuyu and Kalenjin nations to other communities must go through the diffusion of innovation curve. Eventually, one of these innovations will reach a critical mass, the point in the diffusion process where the innovation becomes self-sustaining. This could be because there is a perception that most people in the country are adopting the innovation. At this point, a clear win in the first round in the election in August will be possible. But before either Azimio or Kenya Kwanza achieve a critical mass, they must both invest resources and energy towards campaigns, and they must develop and share targeted messages to persuade the voters to adopt their brand of innovation. Well, according to Simon Sinek, there are only 2 ways to influence human behavior. You either manipulate it or you can inspire it. Only time will tell which method William Ruto will use and which method will work.
Nice. And today I want to interrogate whether the Kambas will be the swing vote in this 2022 election. Now, Kalonzo's possible decision to go it alone, whether IEBC allows or not, or the courts, may seem like he's back to his flip-flopping ways, but is this Kalonzo's master stroke, or did he grossly miscalculate? Some have asked, how do you solve a problem like Kalonzo? We know where that's from. And Kalonzo knows he holds the whole Kamba block. Now, historically, he has, and ceteris paribus, he continues to do so, hold that block. And the average voter turnout in the past 6 elections has been 70%. So if this is applied to the current IEBC register, then the Kamba nation accounts for 1.7 million voters. Now, the Kamba vote block has only changed by 12.7%. This means 875 of the voters have not changed.
I think
So
it's
we-
87%.
87? Oh, sorry, 87%. Sorry. So we can predict the behavior of the 87% using historical patterns from previous elections. So if Kalonzo goes alone, we will now have this third force in the race, the Kambas, who might split the vote. Now the Kalonzo factor could mean a runoff is inevitable. That means no candidate may be able to meet the threshold win outright, which means that for the 2022 election, the candidate to beat is 50% plus one.
Okay.
So if you break this down, the 70% average voter turnout means that there are 15.2 million voters. This means that 50% plus one is 7.62 million votes. So the question becomes, between Ruto and Raila, who is closest to the winning line of those 7 million votes?
Yeah.
We could argue that Kalonzo makes a big difference to both sides. Kalonzo's votes allow both Raila and Ruto to be less dependent on the brazen and often untrustworthy Gema votes. We know that without Gema, Raila has 5.06 million votes and Ruto has 3.84 million votes. So if Kalonzo were to join Ruto or lend his support that way, Ruto would not need many more votes from Gema. He would only need 2.1 million, which is about 45% of the Gema voters, less than half, which Rigathi could probably help him garner.
Yeah.
And if Kalonzo were to stay with Raila, all Raila would need from Gema is 860,000 votes, which is only 19% of Gema. And I'm pretty sure Uhuru could deliver 19%. He'll just look to his diehard supporters. Now, the thing to pay attention to on this is that if Kalonzo and the combination go it alone, the biggest beneficiary will be William Ruto. This is because it makes Raila overly dependent on Gema, just like Ruto is currently. But Ruto currently stands a better chance because he has better inroads into the mountain. So whoever is negotiating with the watermelon has hopefully considered the importance of this Kamba factor. Now please note, the Wiper Party lacks the numbers to actually win any power, right? Kalonzo knows he does not need to convince the electorate that he can stand to win on his own, but he needs to communicate to the other two major alliances that they will not be able to form the government quickly on their own. And that's the magic that he has.
Oh, wow. Okay, so today I would like to switch tracks. And today I would like to plead that I do not know a lot about our history, but I am learning. What I recall, though, is a time when Alfred Mutua was terrified of William Ruto. I remember the press conference he called in 2019 when he claimed his life was in danger after Arab Ruto gave him a firm handshake. I remember a time when he was vocally critical of the man from Sugoi, once saying that he is brilliant but corrupt, and that this corruption is a central problem with his candidacy. Finally, I recall a time in April 2022 when he confirmed that he had seen Azimio's coalition agreement and was satisfied with it, despite what he claims now. Why is it important that we remember these things? Because Alfred Mutua is being intellectually dishonest. In an article in the Sunday Nation titled "Why I Left Raila's Camp for Ruto's Kenya Kwanza," Mutua explains why he left. In his own words, and I quote, "He left because Azimio is steeped in the past while Kenya Kwanza is focused on the present and the future of Kenya." Except he does not explain what any of this means. He said that Azimio had made undemocratic decisions that troubled him and that they lacked a clear vision for country, while Ruto and Kenya Kwanza had a clear vision. And this is what makes, and I quote, Kenya Kwanza the winning team. A compelling case, right? Wrong. All of this is fluff from the king of PR, barely masking his true reason for abandoning Raila. Mutua left because he could not see what was in it for him, and so he went to someone who made it clear how he stood to benefit. And rather than owning his own self-interested behavior, he chooses to hide behind intellectual dishonesty. Intellectual dishonesty is thought of a blanket term for being dishonest without necessarily straight-up lying. It is the failure to apply high standards for truth. It is opposing BBI while using secret, unaccountable, opaque, and private party mechanisms to institute the same thing. It is castigating the president for spending too much money while taking credit for the development that has resulted from that expenditure. And it is Alfred Mutua claiming to leave Azimio for noble reasons when the truth is so obvious a toddler could see it. Indeed, how else can Mutua describe the same guy who he believes threatened to kill him in 2019 as a nice guy in his article 2 years later? How can he claim, as he does in the article, to be worried by Azimio's undemocratic decisions, but fail to extend that same worry and that same vision of democracy to Kenya Kwanza, who, unlike Azimio, did not engage in a democratic process to choose Ruto's running mate? Finally, how can he praise Kenya Kwanza's clear development plans when bottoms up is a slogan that cannot compare to Raila's concrete 6,000 shilling social stimulus program or his recognition of prior learning policy for the Juakali sector? This is intellectual dishonesty of the highest order. A dishonesty further exposed by the fact that he devoted a quarter of this article, over 270 of the over 700 words, and yes, I checked, and more ink than any other reason he names, to the question of power sharing and how he figures into the equation. What is my point here? What does it mean that Mutua behaved in an intellectually dishonest manner? It means that Mutua is engaging in the same politics of deceit and political turnaboutisms that characterize Kenya Kwanza, the womb of intellectually dishonest people. The people that manipulate the forgetfulness of the Kenyan public to cushion its falsehoods, and most importantly, the team of Arab Ruto. So, as Mutua campaigns for the man he believed once threatened his life, remember your history, for he seems to have forgotten his. Thank you for joining us on the Media Police Posts. Columnists, you've been put on notice.